Okay, take 3. Let's hope this time it works with the headphones and the changing of the room. I hope. Otherwise, it's an issue with my phone, and I'm not sure how to change that. But anyway, so we're talking tonight about the Enneagram. And I'm very excited to share with you. I just want some confirmation that the noise issue is okay. Don't mind. Oh, it's awesome. Okay, great. Perfect. Amazing. Okay, so the headphones. Sorry about the whole knotted headphones here. But anyway, okay, so we're talking about the Enneagram here. So the Enneagram, just to reintroduce myself. So glad it's clear now. No, it's totally good. Okay, so just to reintroduce myself, my name is Rikki Ash. I'm a life coach. I'm super excited to share on this topic of the Enneagram that I've studied for years, actually. And tonight's talk is brought to you by the walking movement, which I've seen some ads for on Instagram. It seems really cool and exciting, so stay in the loop. Okay, so the presenting problem here is that people want to learn about themselves, right? People are interested in self-awareness, and that's why personality systems, specifically like the Enneagram, are so compelling, right? And what I want to start by saying is that while I'm going to share with you some ideas about the Enneagram and about, what personality type you might be, I want you to understand that these personality types should not be boxing you in. Honestly, the Enneagram experts themselves say that it's not about showing you the box it's about showing you the box you already are in and a way out rather than boxing you in. Okay. Not touching wires. We got this. Okay, so while the Enneagram is super compelling, right? It is important to understand that there's a lot of other factors that affect our motivation and affect our behavior. And it's also important to realize that it's self-awareness, right? And yes, you can use personality systems to think about what might be the reason someone else is doing this, but it gets a little bit iffy when you do that because it's really meant as a self-awareness tool and it should be used with caution if you're using it for other people. So how prevalent, right, is this? So basically, I think people are intrigued by the Enneagram because it's not necessarily mainstream. Like it's not one of those classic personality types that you learn about, when you do like personality psychology. But it has a lot of wisdom to offer. There's actually a lot of like roots in Kabbalah, not all of the Enneagram, but part of the shape of the Enneagram. And I really do think that it's important to understand ourselves and the reasons we do what we do. And I think it's important to give ourselves insight into our typical patterns of behavior and help us hone in on really what motivates us because we want to ultimately become the most healthiest version of ourselves. And the best way to do that is understand ourselves, right? And so the reason I think this topic is so important is because it really dovetails nicely with character traits and with positive and negative character traits. And it's really, really, it's very cool. So I'm excited to kind of walk you through the 9 types. So I'm going to, basically what I'll do for each type, just to keep it, not too long because there's so much you can explore, is I'll give you a little bit about the type. And then what I kind of wanted to do to make it come alive a little bit more is each type, what would they be doing at a party? Like if you're at a party, like what do you see a type 1 doing? And just to give you an overview, again, there are 9 types and they're literally labeled by number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll go through each type. Okay, so type 1 is known as the reformer. They basically have this fear of being bad or corrupt or defective, and they have this desire for integrity. So they're very conscientious. They have a very strong sense of right or wrong, always striving to be orderly and well organized, and they maintain high standards, perhaps perfectionism, right? And what would a 1 be doing at a party? So honestly, and again, this is all ones at their extreme. Not everybody is always displaying the most extreme version of each type. But this might help you, whatever your temptation might help give you insight as to what type you are. So a 1 at a party might be thinking about what's not done right. They're seen reorganizing, straightening things out, attempting to make things perfect, that kind of thing. Famous type 1s we have, or like Disney character type 1s, Mary Poppins. So that's kind of fun. And so this is something that I've kind of come up with over the years with the Enneagram, in understanding the character traits behind the Enneagram. And so really there's a positive and negative trait underlying each of the types. And I really think that sometimes we think of these negative traits as really bad. And I actually want to reframe that and think that we need to understand that it needs to be in a proper balance. So for example, in terms of a type 1, it would be like this resentment might be or anger might be their negative trait, right? And truth would be the positive trait. And what's interesting is you might think, oh, anger is really bad and truth is really good. But the truth is, right, if you don't have some level of anger a little bit, then what is really getting you towards the truth, right? Most of us are motivated towards truth because of that like little rise in anger, so to speak. And so obviously if anger is too intense, too much, that's not good. But having that little spark of anger that really leads us to living our lives with truth and really understanding what truth is actually really important. So that's a little bit about type 1. Again, there's going to be lots more to say about each of these types, but for the purpose of our live, I'll give you as broad of an overview as I can. Okay, so now we have the type 2. Type 2 is known as the helper. Their basic fear is really of being unwanted or unloved, and their desire is to be loved. Okay, so 2s are typically empathetic, they're sincere, they're warm-hearted, they're friendly, generous. They also have positive and negative character traits, which we'll talk about in a moment. At a party, they tend to focus on people, and they'll notice whoever's not happy. They'll approach people, introduce people to each other. They want to help people be happy. So when I was trying to research Disney characters of different types, so the one that came up here is Dory from Finding Nemo. And so 2s are really they're awesome friends. The traits that they really have are kindness, right? But also pride, okay? A little bit of arrogance. And that might be the thing that they might struggle with. And I think also the same thing as I said before, in my opinion, you actually need a little bit of arrogance, so to speak, in order to feel like your kindness is even worth it, right? You're not going to go out in the world and do something nice if you don't think you're somewhat worth it. Now, the more arrogant your act of kindness, the less potent your act of kindness is, right? So you don't want too much arrogance, but I do think we always say, never have a bad trait, right? That arrogance might actually spark kindness, chesed, right? And that's a good thing. It's just you don't want it to be overtaking the act of kindness, so that the act of kindness is not kind anymore. Okay. So that's a little bit about a type 2, okay? So just enough pride to know that the kindness you do will make a difference, but too much pride is really going to cause your kindness to be a lot less altruistic. Okay, then we have the type 3, the achiever, okay? The fear of the achiever is of being worthless, and the desire is to feel valuable, to feel worthwhile. 3s are they can be charming, ambitious, competent. It's interesting because there's these concepts of countries being different types, and it talks about how the United States is the type 3, wanting to achieve American dream, things like that. And it could be true in the sense that type 3s do typically are the ones that have problems with being workaholics or competitive, but at their best, they're really authentic, and they can be role models at a party. They're shining, they're charming, they're chatty, they can be very impressive. And it could be that they're name dropping or, telling you about something that they've done to impress people at the party. That might be. Okay, according to the Disney Enneagram typer system that I've been using, Mrs. Incredible is the achiever. So that's very interesting. And so again, with the concept of a negative and positive trait, so we have this concept of work ethic that's really positive. And then there's a little bit of this negative trait of a little bit of a deceit. What I mean by that is the following, right? You have to kind of, in order to really have this great work ethic, you have to somewhat, I don't deceive yourself, it sounds bad, but deceive yourself into motivating yourself enough into having this work ethic, and you want it to be a healthy work ethic, right? And so the more deceit that fills your work ethic, the less healthy your work ethic is. you don't want to have to be seeking approval from others. You really want to work hard to achieve your best for your own sake. But sometimes you need a little bit of a push from others, and like focusing on others and what others might think of you. And that sparks you to work hard. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that eventually you want to make sure, like, wait, am I really doing this because I want to, or because I feel like I have to, or I feel like people are expecting me to? So that's a little bit about the 3. Now, by the way, just so you know, everyone might be one main type, but they could have different types in them. That's for a later live. But just in case you're so far confused, like, wait, I think I'm a 1, 2, and 3. Like, it is possible you have aspects of all, but usually everyone has one main type. Okay, type 4, the individualist. Their main fear is that that they have no identity or personal significance, and their desire is to find themselves and to find their significance, to create an identity. And so 4s are very self-aware, they're sensitive, they're reserved, and they're emotionally honest, they're creative. They could also be moody, self-conscious. They could withhold themselves from others because they might feel vulnerable or defective in some way. They can really be creative or, moody. I guess a kind of one or the other. At a party, they're very often reserved. They'd rather other people come over to them. They're usually like on their own at the outskirts of the party, not saying a lot. And it's hard for them to engage. Very often they're introverted. And so our Disney type 4 is actually Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Okay. And in terms of the character traits, so the negative character trait might be jealousy, actually, but the positive one would be depth. Okay. And how does this work? So again, if you're following what I've been saying so far, the idea is that you need a little bit of the negative to spark the positive, but too much of the negative really makes the positive not so positive, right? And so jealousy and having depth, they contradict each other right? Because they could contradict each other, because you're so full of jealousy that's what, like, you just want to look deep to people, right? But the proper balance is that, you like, a lot of type 4s, they want to seem like unique and like they know something that other people maybe don't, and they have a lot of depth to them. And a lot of that can really be sparked by jealousy of, like, I want to be like the best. I want to be known as the deepest, or whatever it might be. But of course, a healthy balance is you don't want too much jealousy, right? Because you don't want to get caught up in other people and making your depth tainted by jealousy, but actually, in a healthy form of a type 4, that depth is really, really, like, truthfulness is really, really authentic, and it's not necessarily caused by, jealousy. But I do bring these negative traits up because, I don't want to kid ourselves. Like, all of us have positives and negatives, and that's normal. And I think we can actually use our negative tendencies to help spark positivity, and that's a great thing. And then over time, we work on becoming healthier and healthier versions of ourselves, which might mean, diluting that negative part and, leveling up the positive. Okay, so now we have a type 6. Type 6 is known as the investigator. So the main fear of a type 6 is being useless, helpless, incapable, and their desire is to be capable. This is type 5, the investigator. I said 6, but I meant 5. The desire is to be capable. So type 5s are very insightful, very curious. They really like to know. Like, they want to absorb knowledge. They're usually independent, innovative, inventive. They can also become pretty detached. Very often they're introverted as well, like type 4s. They're usually at a party, people observers. They're not fully engaged in their surroundings. They're very perceptive. They'll take mental notes, but, like, they're not the type that wants to dance at a party, and, like, they'd rather watch. And those people, like, you try to get them involved and you try to get them to dance, and, like, no. Like, type 5s are usually, like, really fine. Like, it's not like they're shy. They're not interested. Okay, so when I actually looked up the Disney characters, I got Milo. Not really sure who Milo is, to be honest. So if anyone wants to let me know, please let me know. But Milo is apparently a type 5. He is an investigator. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. So in terms of a type 5, what is the positive and negative character traits? So for positive, we have this wisdom, right? And the negative is actually right? This idea of actually withholding wisdom, which is very interesting. And so, a 5, the idea is they want to know. They have a desire for knowledge and a desire, and they also, they understand there are times to remain quiet, but they also, sometimes they want to, sometimes they can be greedy almost with their knowledge. And so the kind of goal of a type 5 in its healthiest version would be that they wouldn't be greedy in their knowledge, that they'd want to share their knowledge with the world. And that's a very interesting thing, the idea of greed and knowledge. I once asked a high school class that I taught, do you think you have an obligation to share your notes with someone else because you have the knowledge and they don't? And it's a very complicated conversation, the idea of sharing knowledge, but it's something that type 5s really, really struggle with because they've gained a lot of information, a lot of, thinking, and sometimes it's hard to share. But that hardness to share sparks them perhaps to actually do the work and learn the information, but hopefully they will feel comfortable enough to actually share that information in their healthiest version. Okay, so that's a type 5. And now we have a type 6. So a type 6 is the loyalist, okay? So their fear is being without support or guidance, and their desire is to have security or support. So type 6s are committed, they're security oriented, they're reliable, hardworking, responsible, trustworthy, troubleshooters. They're awesome, as all the types are. They can also become defensive or evasive and potentially anxious and run on stress, complain about running on stress. And so a type 6 at a party usually is seen doing something helpful. They're probably washing the dishes in the kitchen, making sure there's enough room to sit, keeping things running smoothly. The Disney version of a type 6 is apparently Mulan, so that's cool, right? She's committed and security oriented and things like that. And this I actually think is really helps understand a lot. And their positive character trait would actually be faith, and their negative, what they struggle with, might be anxiety. And this to me is so important because whether you're a type 6 or not, anxiety is an important issue. So I think this can help anyone. What's the proper balance of anxiety and faith? And I think what's really important to understand is people with really awesome faith do have a little bit of anxiety. And I do think that anxiety, if it's very minute, it will spark your faith, right? Because if you don't have something that you're nervous about, what are you then putting faith in, right? And so I think a lot of people think that faith and anxiety can't coexist. And I think actually they need to coexist. It's just that eventually you have to sort of remove the anxiety so that it's not super high so that your faith can be higher, if that makes sense. And so again, it's about the proper balance of anxiety and faith. When a 6 gets to a certain level of nervousness, so that they can strengthen their faith and calm themselves down, but obviously too much anxiety can cause the faith to be, tainted or difficult. So I think that's really helpful, by the way, again, for anyone, type 6 or not, but for sure for type 6s, this is one of their main struggles that they go through on a daily basis. Okay, so now we have a type 7. Okay, so a type 7 has a fear of being deprived and in pain, and they have this desire to be satisfied, content, have their needs fulfilled. They're usually extroverted, optimistic, spontaneous, playful, high-spirited. We'll get to the party, but, life of the party. But they can have trouble with impatience, with impulsiveness, things like that. So again, a 7 at the party, they like the limelight. They want it to be fun. Again, they're usually the life of the party. They'll drag you on the dance floor and probably be found at the center, and they're entertaining others. Apparently, Princess Ariel from The Little Mermaid, she's the type 7, the enthusiast. And so it's interesting with a type 7, the positive character trait would actually be happiness, right? They really have this true happiness at their best selves. And at their worst selves, they might actually, struggle with gluttony, with overindulgence. And what that means is, at their unhealthy state, 7s might actually look to overindulge in the wrong things to find happiness. But at the proper balance, that desire for indulgence actually might lead type 7s to find the right things to invest in to find happiness, right? Type 7s could be the happiest people, and they're not necessarily happy because they're indulging on the wrong things, but it could be really the right things. And that feeling of needing that happiness or wanting to indulge actually leads them there. So again, at their healthiest, they have real, true happiness. And that's something really to strive for and to achieve. So that's type 7 for us. Now we have a type 8. So type 8 is the challenger. Their fear is of being harmed or controlled by others, and they have a desire to protect themselves, to be in control of their own life, their own destiny. They're self-confident, they're strong, they're assertive, they're protective, resourceful, decisive, and but they want to control their environment. Sometimes they want to control people. A little bit of control freak could be at their worst. Sometimes it can be intimidating. An 8 at a party, they are a big, high energy person. People are aware of their presence without even realizing it. Like, they're the type of people, like, they walk into the room and, like, you notice them. They seem to be impressive, but they could also dominate. They want to impress others with stories. A lot of people don't want to mess with 8s. Mr. Incredible, he's our Disney type 8. And in terms of, so the type 8, what is the positives, what are the negatives? So there is, the positive would actually be strength, okay? And I don't mean like just physical strength, but I mean like real strength, like to actually like inspire and be a role model. And then their difficulty can actually be lust. And so again, right, when you're lustful, at least having a little bit of lust actually can inspire, right? Can inspire and spark that desire to be strong and inspire others, right? That's important. At the same time, right, someone doesn't want to be a leader that wants to lead for the wrong reasons. That's, full of lust. And so balancing the strength with the lust is actually really one of the main challenges of a type 8 and something really, really important. If anyone's interested, I have all of these. I keep thinking of a character in Tanakh for each one of them, but I will leave you with what I have now, and that will be for another time. Okay, so a type 9 is the peacemaker. So the fear is of loss and separation, and the desire is to have inner stability, to have peace of mind. So 9s are accepting, they're trusting, they're stable, usually supportive, optimistic. They can also be too willing to go along with others to keep peace. They want everything to go smoothly, like they don't like conflict. That's a big thing. And they can be very complacent. So a 9 at a party is usually cheerful, unassuming. They're not pushing forwards. Like, you just like them when you talk to them, that type, that type, no pun intended. They could talk to anyone, fit in anywhere, but it could be that their minds drifted off when you're talking to them. Our type 9 Disney character is Sleeping Beauty. And in terms of their positive and negative character traits, so we have peace, and then we also have laziness, okay? It sounds bad, laziness, but what it really means is that, right, like, laziness is actually a good thing in a sense because it sparks peace, right? In the sense, like, okay, I don't want to get involved. I don't want conflict. Sometimes you're lazy. It's just like, whatever. I'm not in the mood to get involved, right? But then obviously the more you like get rid of the fact that it's about laziness, but you really just want the peace, that's like the healthiest version of a type 9. Okay, so I know I threw a lot of information at you. This was really just an overview of the 9 types. And there's a lot more out there, a lot you can read. And something, that I do want to share is that it's important to realize, as much as personality types are important, there's a lot of psychology out there that talks about the importance of the situation, and that is more important than the personalities, right? Like, well, in this situation, you might act like this, but in this situation, you might act like that. So take everything with a grain of salt. If it speaks to you, amazing. If it helps you live a better life, amazing. If it doesn't, you don't need it. It's okay. Don't get too bogged down by your number, because you're more than your number. And if you feel like you totally resonate with the number, then perhaps it's showing you the box you're already in and a way out. So don't get too caught up in it. But if anyone has questions, please share in the chat on Instagram, and I'm very happy to answer anything. Okay, I don't see any questions. I hope tonight's conversation provided some clarity on the Enneagram personality types, and that you walk away with a basic understanding of the 9 types. And thank you for being here. Thanks for bearing with all the technical difficulties, and I look forward to spending time with you all very soon.